Can a single structure be responsible for the entire destruction and abandonment of a canal? A 52-mile long canal? Join us today as we try and find out. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Matt.
Did you invite him? I didn't invite him. Right, no potty mouth this time, alright? No insulting the entire population of Basingstoke.
Oh, he likes Wiltshire, we're all good. All good, everybody.
We've told a number of stories now from the Wilts and Barts Canal, the 52-mile long connection that was built during Canal Mania, opened in 1810, spanning from Semmington down in Wiltshire up to Abingdon with its connection to the Thames. This won't be the last story we tell from its towpath, but it was certainly the last story for the Wilts and Barts Canal itself. Today's question can be answered completely within this one shot. And as we slowly pan backwards, everything we need comes into view in this one shot. So how exactly can this spot cause the closure of the canal? A junction with its branch down to Canal, 2 locks and an aqueduct. Let's try and find out. Now the River Marden, as you can see, was flowing very high today, and because a lot of the fields around here were flooded, meant that we had to come in from the junction side and work our way back towards the aqueduct closest to the river. That worked out quite well for the story anyway. So one place we can't get to is Stanley Junction, which is about 100 yards that way. We're very close to the junction. We think this here is the site of Stanley Top Lock. Now we know this is filled in, you can tell from the LiDAR, the farmer told us it's also filled in, but right there you can see the taper of the brickwork on the bottom of that lock. Down there you've just got a huge pipe which presumably allows the water, this brook, certainly in this weather, to allow the water down into the River Marden. So right there you would have seen a very impressive lock. Looking at the map, it looks like there was a bridge first. Now, all down here, there's all this lovely masonry hidden away, and highly likely you'd have been able to moor up here if you were waiting to get in the lock ahead of you. Certainly all this here looks very sort of straight-edged to allow a reasonably long vessel. And then on the same part of the walling there, we found this, which we assume was part of that bridge just before the top lock. Now we're going to head further down this way, and I can already see ahead of us about 50 yards what looks to be Stanley Bottom Lock. It's quite spectacular. I don't know how long I can stay in the canal for though. Right, so I'm stood now on the top end of Stanley Bottom Lock, and in terms of scary sights, you can see down into the lock. I don't know how well it'll come out on camera, but it's incredibly bowed. You can see from the top the gap looks about 3 foot, and incredibly dangerous. You wouldn't want to be down there, especially in this weather. It's highly liable that a further collapse could happen. But there's everything to see here. You've got the place where the sluice would have taken the water down and in there and filled the lock itself. Another one right behind me as well. Just a really, really gorgeous sight. So the Wilts and Barts Canal, opened by 1810. I think sections of it were open before that. And like many canals, it saw its heyday in that period thereafter, when this canal itself ironically helped build the railway that would then take away its main core of traffic. That main core being coal from the Somerset coalfields inwards up towards Abingdon, and a little bit of trade going the other way, but not a lot. I think it was more agricultural going the other way. You can tell why it subsided. You've got huge structures of brick here, and the land next to where the lock would have been here has sunk down around about 2 feet down. So you avoid the brambles. Right here we're about 1.5 foot lower than what we should be. We should be level with the canal, so the wall has been pushed out. This is sunk down thereafter. And here you've only got a 3-foot section on the top of the canal, and you can see that gap. You almost feel like you could just jump across it. You wouldn't want to do that for fairly obvious reasons. We're walking to the bottom of Stanley Bottom Lock now, and how is it possible that one structure can be responsible for the entire destruction of a canal, the entire abandonment of this canal? Well, as I said, 1850s onwards, this canal saw a loss of significant traffic to the railway. So already by that stage, it was struggling economically. So 50 years on from that point, in fact, 1901, the Stanley Aqueduct was breached. And what that meant is disaster for a significant chunk of the canal from here all the way down towards Melksham. Explain the reason why in a second when we get to the aqueduct and the structure in question. Well, this is probably as far in as I'm prepared to go. You can hopefully make out by the shots we've taken, the pictures we've taken, of how bowed that is there, what I was talking about up the top. It makes for a very beautiful picture. A waterfall at the end of water cascading into the lock. And yeah, there's some work here to be done in the future should this open. As we probably haven't mentioned yet, but the Wilts and Berks Canal Trust are making some good headway into a lot of different projects, and I should imagine here is one of those projects that will be on the cards fairly soon. So Rebecca's taken the high road on the canal path. I'm about to jump over a little brook. Ugh. Matt and I are going to try and walk down the canal towards the aqueduct that we've been harping on about, and that is the structure in question. That structure was breached in 1901 and no longer economical to repair it and rebuild it. But what that also meant was disaster for the rest of the canal. It wasn't past that point already, because the River Marden back at Canal, well, that fed into the canal and gave it its water. I think a significant chunk of the length of the canal was fed by the River Marden here. So in the Stanley Aqueduct being breached and collapsing, well, that meant that the rest of the canal down towards Melksham was pretty much out of water and therefore unusable.
Ow. Brambles!
I think the farmer chap's set some traps for us. The other YouTubers just sort of corpses lying around.
Right, so we knew we were close to the River Marden, and here is ahead of us the aqueduct, or what remains of the aqueduct. And as with the lock back there, we've got masonry sides to this aqueduct, and yeah, definitely don't want to end up in the River Marden today, so we need to be super careful how we tread ahead of us. But here is a site of the structure that was responsible for the entire abandonment of the Wilts and Berks Canal. Probably a bit of a strong phrase for it, but in essence it is. We've been told by the lovely farmer chap that invited us here that this side is where that breach happened. Hold on. So part of the brook that comes down the canal now here goes down there and into the River Marden that way. Well, this is where the original breach was, on the eastern side of the canal, on the aqueduct itself. So this right here is a spot where the breach occurred. Right, so we've just stepped away from the aqueduct itself and we're in a field now next to the canal. Matt's just made a really good point in terms of the undulating nature of this area of land. Look up there, I know it's like a 10-20 metre hill ahead of us. We've got this massive embankment here next to us. It's like a railway embankment, it's so big, and then it goes off into the hill up there, and you can see why they needed two locks up before the junction, because it's quite a significant hill there. But this is like a railway structure. It's hugely significant. Imagine the workforce that would have gone into this and then built the aqueduct just back there. So this has been the story of the end of the Wilts and Berks Canal, the story of its abandonment and the reason why. And it was because of the aqueduct there that was missing. So that's the end of today's journey. Big thanks to the very kind farmer that allowed us permission to come and walk on the canal that crosses his land. Thanks to Matt for joining us in his usual canal. I can't even see, the sun's so bright I can't see you two, so yeah, come in. Thanks to Matt for his usual historian. Closer. Hi. You'd be surprised how many video ideas I steal off of Matt, so fair credit to Matt. Anything canal related, I completely plagiarise and say, yeah, thanks Matt. We'll see you this time next week, 5 PM, Greenwich Mean Time. Bye.